Hello, the purpose of today's book talk is to bring awareness into the battle against censorship. Today I will be talking to you about 3 books found on the American Library Association's list of the top 10 most frequently challenged books for the year 2011. But before I begin, I would like to read to you parts of a poem written by Ellen Hopkins, the author of Crank. The title of the poem is Manifesto. You say you're afraid for children, innocence ripe for corruption, by perversion or sorcery on the page, but sticks and stones do break bones, and ignorance is no armor. You do not speak for me, and will not deny my kids' magic in favor of miracles. A word to the unwise, torch every book, char every page, burn every word to ash. Ideas are incombustible, and therein lies your real fear. Dangerously Alice is the first book I'd like to talk to you today about. This book is by Phyllis Reynolds Naylor. It's written for grades 7 and up. It's been challenged for nudity, offensive language, religious viewpoint, and it's considered unsuited to the age group. This book is listed on the ALA's list of top 10 most frequently challenged books for 2010. Teenagers hear curse words, they see nudity in society and on television, and they often question the existence of God. They're very aware of their surroundings, even more so than generations before. What teenager has never argued with a parent or an authority figure? And what teenager does not desire to be wanted or liked by their peers? What teenager has never had a crush? This book allows its readers an honest and realistic approach into the coming-of-age pressures felt by all teens today. The main character in the title is Alice, 16 years old. She holds the image of being a goody two-shoes. She and her friends often have very frank and candid discussions about boys, sex, and if and when it should happen. They talk about their friends. They have a friend in the hospital who's suffering from leukemia. They experience a near-fatal drunk driving accident, which actually teaches them a lot of lessons just about life and how precious it truly is. Alice experiences turmoil with her new stepmother, and she finds herself dating a boy a year older than her who's known by others to be fast with girls. So this book gives a lot of insight into many realistic issues teens experience today. In a conversation with Alice and her girlfriends on page 2, she says, I couldn't help smiling a little, partly remembering the skinny dipping we'd done at Camp Overlook 2 summers ago, and partly thinking how Mark Steidmeister's parents were pretty strict about alcohol and drugs in their swimming pool, but completely oblivious to the fact that Mark and some of his friends were having midnight swims in the nude. On the realistic portrayals of high school, Alice says, walk into any school and they'll point out the geeks, the goths, the nerds, the brains, and the jocks. But Jill and her company, they divide the kids into the studs, the players, the sluts, the clueless virgins, the Christian virgins, the freaks, and even those are broken down. Dangerously Alice by Phyllis Reynolds Naylor, written for grades 7 and up, conveys a valuable message to young girls. In the words of Alice, life is just a series of hurdles, and no one ever tells you that. You get over one roadblock, you've got another staring you in the face. Speaking of jumping through hurdles, In the Pursuit of Life leads me to the topic of my next book. This is also found in the ranks of ALA's top 10 most frequently challenged books for the year 2011, The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. The Hunger Games has been challenged for anti-ethnic, anti-family, insensitivity, occult, satanic, and offensive language and violence. This title takes place after an entire civilization is destroyed from an apocalypse of some sort, creating the nation of Panem. It is here in Panem that the Hunger Games take place. There are 12 districts, and every year, annually, each district draws 2 names from a lottery of a boy and a girl between the ages of 12 and 18. This year, 12-year-old Prim Everdeen, her name is drawn. Without hesitation, the main character in the story, Katniss Everdeen, volunteers to take her place and fight to the death in the Hunger Games. This is a story of family loyalty, pride, resilience, and bravery. It's also a fight to stand up for what you think is right. Yes, it contains violence and offensive language, but what teen hasn't seen that today? This book gives readers a fictional world in which anything is possible if you fight for it and if you believe in it. The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins is recommended for grades 7 and up, and it's a novel about perseverance with an interesting twist with action-packed pages that keep every reader wanting to find out what happens. Any teen should be able to read this book. In the voice of Katniss on page 311, "You won't be alone, I whisper to myself. I have my mother and Prim, well, for the time being. And then, I don't want to think about then. When Prim has grown up and my mother has passed away, I know I'll never marry, never risk bringing up a child into this world. Because if there's one thing being a victor doesn't guarantee, it's your children's safety. My kids' names would go right into the reaping ball with all the everyone else's. And I swear I'll never let that happen." The thought of feeling all alone brings me to the last book I would like to talk to you about. Also on ALA's top 10 frequently most challenged books for the year 2011 is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. This book is challenged for offensive language and racism. The story takes place in Macomb, Alabama during the Depression. Macomb is thought of as a tired old town with people who have nothing better to do and, quite frankly, no money to do it. The main characters are 6-year-old Scout and her brother Jim, who is 4 years older. He's age 10 at the start of the book. They live with their father, a lawyer, Atticus Finch, and their caretaker, Calpurnia. Atticus Finch is defending a black man named Tom Robinson, who is on trial for raping a young white girl in the town. Despite familial and community disapproval, Atticus Finch maintains his reasons for defending Tom. He maintains his moral obligation to stand up for what he believes is right. He explains to his daughter Scout about his reasons to defend Tom, and he says, "Every lawyer gets at least one case in his lifetime that affects him personally. This one's mine, I guess. You might hear some ugly talk about this at school, but do one thing for me if you will. You just hold your head up high and keep those fists down." Atticus teaches his children to have the highest moral character with lessons that would greatly enrich any student reading this book. First of all, he says, when talking to his daughter Scout, "If you can learn a simple trick, Scout, you'll get along better with all kinds of folks. You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view." Atticus wasn't interested in guns. When he tells his son Jim he'd rather see him shoot tin cans in the backyard rather than birds, although he knows he would go after birds, he tells the explanation of the title. "Remember, it's a sin to kill a mockingbird," he says. The children don't understand this, so they go and speak to their favorite neighbor, Miss Mowdy. She explains, "Mockingbirds don't do one thing but make music for us to enjoy. They don't eat up people's gardens. They don't nest in corn cribs. They don't do one thing but sing their hearts out for us. That's why it's a sin to kill a mockingbird." Atticus explains to his children, "Tom Robinson's case is something that goes to the essence of a man's conscience. I couldn't go to church and worship God if I didn't try to help that man. People are entitled to think what they want and they're entitled to full respect for their opinions, but before I can live with other folks, I've got to live with myself. The one thing that doesn't abide by majority rule is a person's conscience." Jim asks his dad, "How could they do it?" "I don't know," he says. "They did it last night and they'll do it again, and when they do, it seems that only children weep." This beautifully written novel, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, gives deep moral insight into humanity, equality, consciousness, and courage. It's recommended for all high school students. Teens want to read books of substance. They want to read books that can appeal to them on a personal level. When they're denied the right to read materials considered inappropriate by some, they are denied the right to grow and thrive and develop. They are denied the right to form their own opinions about the world in which they live and to possibly learn something from the lessons of a character with whom they can relate. I hope this book talk has sparked an interest in you to really read what's at the heart of the matter. banning books serves no one but ignorance. Is this the lesson that we want to teach our youth? Thank you very much.